national anthem, and then shortly after that, the Imam will make his 5 to 10 minutes of presentation, and then after that, we will make the rest of the show more interactive by opening up your phone lines. I see so many of you have called in already. We want to thank you for doing so. So here goes the Liberian national anthem. Good evening once again, and welcome to the Liberian Diaspora Forum. Tonight we have Imam Dukuly of Masjid al-Nur, North Minneapolis, Minnesota. He's all of us Imam. I mean, when I say all of us, I mean those of us here in Minneapolis. I see some of you obviously calling from other states, so all of us wouldn't include you. But he's our Imam here, and so he's a highly respected community member. And so tonight we want to thank him for coming on the show, just as we want to thank you for coming on the show. The good thing about my last few guests I've had, the two senators, Senator Joy Howard Taylor, Senator Groupie, and Imam Dukuly, the good thing about all the people that I've had lately is that I really don't have to introduce them, since in fact all of those men are by far known than the show itself, or than myself. So that takes care of the introduction part of it. Imam Dukuly is no stranger to this community or to this religion. And so with that said, I would just turn the floor over to Imam Dukuly, let him begin his 5 to 10 minute presentation, and then shortly after that we'll open up your line. So Imam Dukuly, the floor is yours, sir.
Alhamdulillah. ونصلي ونسلم على أشرف المرسلين سيدنا محمد وقرة أعيننا محمد بن عبد الله وعلى آله وأصحابه من تبع بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. أحبة في الله. My respected brothers and sisters in Islam, we praise Allah for the opportunity to discuss one of the most important issues confronting our community. We like to also thank you, the host, for inviting us to appear on this program. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that will guide all of us as we discuss these issues and give us the hidayah. The issue of women in Islam is a topic of great misunderstanding and distortion due partly to a lack of understanding, but also partly due to misbehavior on the part of some Muslims, which has been taken to represent the teachings of Islam. So tonight we speak here about what Islam teaches, not what Muslims do. And that is that the standard according to which Islam or Muslims are to be judged. As such, my basis and source is the Quran and the words of Allah and the sayings of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his deeds and his confirmation. Islamic laws are derived from these sources. To facilitate our discussion, we can discuss the position of women from a spiritual, economic, social, and political standpoint. From the spiritual aspect, there are 7 points to remember. But as we go into the conversation, inshallah, we'll be able to outline those. Brothers and sisters, I just want to remind all of us about this great topic that we are having tonight. Mawlana al-Azim, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, has clearly indicated to us in the Quran about men and women. One of the ayahs, as a matter of fact, is in the chapter called The Women, Surah An-Nisa. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا. Meaning, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in these verses, O you mankind. Now, this verse is not speaking just to Muslims. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is addressing the entire humanity in this verse. It's a fear Allah, your Lord. الَّذِي خَلَقَكُم مِّن نَفْسٍ وَاحِدَةٍ, Allah who created you from a single soul. وَخَلَقَ مِنْهَا زَوْجَهَا, out of the soul, that single soul, He created His mate. وَبَثَّ مِنْهُمَا رِجَالًا كَثِيرًا وَنِسَاءً, and out of the two, Allah created many men and women. وَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ, therefore fear Allah. الَّذِي تَسَاءَلُونَ بِهِ وَالْأَرْحَامِ, fear Allah. Allah we seek through whom we seek our mutual benefit, and also the wound that bore us. Inna Allah kana alaykum raqiba. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, beware that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is watching over you. So the Quran makes it clear that all human beings, and the physiology doesn't really apply to men or women alone, but to both, having what you might call it, human. So it is not just a man that is called human being. Woman also is called that. So these ayahs actually indicate, just like if you have a shoes, you can have one side. What makes a pair of shoes? When you have both, that's what they call a pair of shoes. And that's what makes a human being. So it's not just one person. It's the combination of both that is referred to by the Quran as human being. So I hope Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will guide all of us, brothers and sisters, in this. It is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in another ayah, هو الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وجعل منها زوجها ليسكن إليها. It is He who created you from a single being, and of the same kind He did make His mate, that He might incline to her, ليسكن إليها, as a matter of place of repose. So when you have all your problems during the day, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created this mate for you as a way of comfort for you. And so I am bringing all of this so that it will be guiding us as we go through the conversation. Another verse of the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَاطِرُ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْعَبْدِ جَعَلَ لَكُم مِّنْ أَنفُسِكُمْ أَزْوَاجًا وَمِنَ الْأَنْعَامِ أَزْوَاجًا يَذْكُرُكُم فِيهِ لَيْسَ كَمِثْلِهِ شَيْءٌ وَهُوَ السَّمِيعُ الْبَصِيرُ. And these are the originator of the heavens and the earth. He made mates for you from among yourselves. So these are all guiding principles pointed out to the equality of man and woman. Even though we have distinct responsibilities, some of the spiritual, some of His spirit here, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned in the Quran, here means not in a incarnational sense, but a pure, innate, spiritual nature that God, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, has endowed her or him with. So we have to understand all of this. The Quran indicates again that one of the most honored positions of human is that God created the human, and as I refer to Surah Israel, it means both sexes as His trustees and representatives on earth. There are many references in the Quran that reaffirm what I have just said. And then last, one of the things I also like to say for those of our brothers and sisters who are listening, it is the so-called original sin. We have to, Quran or Islam came actually to liberate women from all of these allegations, accusations of a woman being responsible for the downfall of man. So if the other religions have this belief firmly anchored perhaps in their teachings, but Islam came to liberate women from all of this. We are told in some religious teachings that men are here as a result of women misleading Adam to have eaten the forbidden fruit. But the Quran liberated the women from this. If you read Surah Al-Araf, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, He warned them, لا تقربا هذه الشجرة فتكونا من الظالمين فأزالهما الشيطان عنها فأخرجهما مما كان فيه. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, by sending down the Quran, it actually liberated women in general, that they are not responsible for the downfall of men. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, I warn them, do not approach this tree, the forbidden tree. It says, فَأَزَلَهُمَا الشَّيْطَانِ. Shaitan caused them to sleep. Two of them. It is for Adam to sleep or for Eve to sleep. It's a shaitan caused for both of them to sleep. فَأَزَلَهُمَا, shaitan, فَأَخْرَجَهُمَا مِمَّا كَانَ فِيهِ. As a consequence of their action, فَأَخْرَجَهُمَا مِمَّا كَانَ فِيهِ. So Allah caused them to be removed from where they were in the garden of heaven. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent the Quran, and one of the reasons to liberate the women from all of this, because women have taken this burden for centuries. So Islam came and said, no, woman is not responsible. Two of them are responsible for committing that particular Sunday. So I just wanted to point this out. There are so many rights that perhaps as we go through the conversation, that we can indicate what right the women have and how equal we are, how Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam referred to them. Those of you who have daughters, do not also be despondent because you have a girl child. Girl child also is a blessing for a Muslim to have a girl child, or for a believer to have a girl child. And so all of these issues as we go, if you have questions, I'd like to stop here and then also say thank you so much for your invitation. And I also like to thank the listening audience this evening.
Thank you, Imam Dukuly. I'd like to join Imam Dukuly in thanking each and every one of you for tuning in tonight. Obviously, we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you. And so you heard it. That was Imam Dukuly. He just made his. And so with that said, I've just opened up your question line. You may begin entering your question by dialing *61 on your phone, *61. And in the past, you also noticed that we've managed to entertain text message question just in case you happen to be at work where you can listen but can't talk. And if you're able to text, by all means, please text your question to 612-203-3820. By the same token, if you are at work sitting in front of a computer monitor where you can't talk but you have access to computer, you may also email your question to Liberian Diaspora Forum at live.com. That question will also come to us here. So you have more than you got multiple ways of submitting your question, and I can guarantee you we will take all of your question as they come to us. So that's *61. If you have any question, comment, or concern for Imam Dukuly at this time, we will open up your line so you can ask your question. I see so many of you have just logged in just within the last 2 minutes. I want to thank each and every one of you. Imam, I'd like to start as the host here, and I'd like to start with something very simple. It seems as though everywhere you turn now and there, if it's not politicians talking about women's rights, it's the religious people and the rest of it. I have nothing against that, but I just wonder, is there anything in the Holy Quran or in the Islamic religion as a whole that has to do with men's rights specifically? I know we have a lot of rights just from the surface, but as far as the religion addressing women's rights, is there any such thing in the Quran? And if so, I'd love to invite you to come back someday for us to discuss that. But first, I'd like to know, is there any such thing as men's rights within Islam? Imam? Imam Dukuly? 37. Imam Dukuly. Oh, well, hang on here. Imam?
Hello? Yes, I'm there.
Did you hear my question?
Yes, I did. There are rights for men in Islam, but that has never been misunderstood in any society. That's why most of the time the emphasis are not laid on that. What are the rights of men in Islam in terms of the relationship between husband and wife? There are so many rights that the men have, but here is this vulnerable creature of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the woman. If you look at number one right you have is that first is to pay the dowry for her. Okay, you have to seek the consent of the parents or the guardian and the woman herself. If she agrees, you, the man, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala requires you to pay for her. That's number one. Number two, when you shall have fulfill your obligations to her, meaning feeding her, clothing her. If she's sick, it's your problem. Providing protection, security protection, and guiding her. And if you do that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, then obey your husband. That means the obedience, as far as Allah is concerned, is not about, okay, you tell your wife, don't pray, or don't fast, or don't go to Hajj, even though she had a maid. None of those. But the obedience, like respecting your words, okay, she will not bring anyone into your house without your approval, okay, and she will also honor you in your absence. That means she will take care of herself. She's not exposed to someone else except her husband. I'm not saying that she can't go out, but in terms of committing lewdness, all of those things are inculcated into the man's right. You know, when you shall fulfill your responsibility. And so these are the things that are required. But when we fail to exercise their right, you cannot demand your right. Your right is only demanded based upon your obedience to the law of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So you have right to the point where she cannot even spend out of your money without telling you. She has to tell you because why? You are responsible to feed the family. Let's assume that you give her, okay, this is $1,000 for this month. This is just for food and other miscellaneous things. And then someone call her, maybe let's say from her family. They say, can you help me with some money? She cannot take out of that money, even a dime, without your consent. She has to inform you. That's part of the right. Now, another right you have, you can choose her friends. Anyone that you feel threatened as a husband, that his or her relationship with your wife will cause a problem for you, you can say, look, madam, with all due respect, I don't like this friendship. That's the right. Now, another right you have is that she cannot go anywhere without your approval. She has to tell you why, because you are being obligated by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and Islam to protect your wife. If she goes somewhere, you need to know where she is going. Like, for instance, okay, your wife is here. You live in Minneapolis. How can she travel to Pennsylvania without telling you? What if something happens to her? And you know how that works here. The first person of concern, it will be the husband if anything were to happen to her. Likewise, if something were to happen to the husband, and that's Islamic Sharia. Okay, so, but nowadays in our society, you will hear a woman say, you don't tell me where I go. You don't, no, Islam says if your husband fulfills his responsibility, these are rights that he has over his wife.
Thank you, Imam. Folks, once again, if you're just joining us, please dial *61. We have Imam Dukuly on the line tonight. He's speaking on the topic of women's right in Islam. I know a lot of you here listening, and I also know that many of us have questions. We've often heard Imam Dukuly speak many, many times, but rarely we have the chance to ask him, our personal questions. So this is your chance. With that said, I'll take the first caller here. I believe this is D-Floor. D-Floor, for the benefit of the audience, would you please state where you're calling from and your question for Imam Dukuly?
Thank you for having me, Mr. Cromer. Again, my name is D-Floor Flomo. I'm calling from Brooklyn Park. My question is for our guest tonight, Mr. Dukuly. How are you, sir?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. I would just like to know if there's anything in the Holy Quran that says that a Muslim man, a male Muslim, cannot marry a Christian female, but in the other way around, they can still have a relationship, like have sex.
Well, no, absolutely not. If you go in the chapter called the Surah Al-Ma'idah, I think chapter 5 of that is chapter 5, verse 5, clearly indicate that a Muslim man can marry a Christian woman if he pays her dowry. That's what the Quran says. If you pay the dowry, then you can marry her. But you cannot go and commit lewdness. Lewdness is forbidden in totality. There's no such thing in the Quran that a man can have an affair with a woman before paying her dowry. That's not there. And so Islam is very clear on that. In the question of marriage, yes, they can get married. There's no prohibition on that. But they cannot have relationship outside of marriage.
And so I hope that answers your question, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is إذا أتيتمون أجورهن محسنين غير مسافين ولا متخذي أخدان. So not committing lewdness, as long as you can pay the dowry, that will suffice. You're allowed to do that. And by the way, to further even explain to you that if you're a Muslim, you marry a Christian woman, you are not to force her to change her religion either. You can talk to her, you can teach her, you can persuade her, but you cannot force her. If she desires to remain as she was, there's no such thing in Islam that you can force her to become a Muslim. Because if you really want a Muslim woman, you should marry a Muslim woman. But if you have a Christian, but good Christians, though, the women who are chaste women in Christianity, those who believe and practice the religion and don't commit lewdness outside the religion, those are the ones who are allowed, we allowed to marry them. But if the man is not observing that, so like the question he asked, if the man is allowed to sleep with a woman, if the dowry has not been paid, that is forbidden totally in Islam, and perhaps in any given society.
Before I take the next caller here, I'd like to quickly ask you, though. So, with the right that you alluded to earlier, that men have, over their wives, and so, would it be fair to ask, so to say that there are differences between the right of Muslim women and that of non-Muslim women? For instance, if you have looking at tradition over here, if he's looking at marriages over here, whereby as far as she cannot spend your money without your permission, she cannot go without your, she cannot go to certain places without your approval, she cannot do this and do that. Obviously, where we are, all of us know that we know different here. We know that's not exactly the situation. So in situations where the woman is not meeting her end of the bargain, does that takes away some of her right under Islam then, Imam?
Well, quite frankly, what you are required to do is also to be patient. Allah has given us measures that one can use. Number one, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it says in the chapter of Nisa, Surah Nisa, chapter 4, he says that first, فَإِذُوهُنَّ. If a woman is doing something outside of that can break down the relationship, the husband must take the leading role. Number one thing you have, number two, the tools that you have is the فَإِذُوهُنَّ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say advise them. For how long? You need to be patient. You need to be patient to teach them the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. My dear, this is not good. You cannot do this. وَأَجْرُوهُنَّ فِي الْمَضَاجِعِ. If she doesn't listen or comply with that, you are giving a specific tool that they are not given in Islam, which is to abstain, to stay away from them in bed. You can sleep together in one bed, but you say, look, if you don't do this, I'm not going to do this. فَأَضْرِبُوهُنَّ. Now, it's also discipline them. This discipline, it does not mean to blow them in their face, punch their heart where it will leave marks on them. No. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam say in Hujjatul Wada, فَضْرِبُوهُنَّ غَيْرَ مُبَرَّحِينَ. You cannot punch your wife and leave marks on them. He did not do that. And we are advised to follow the footsteps. It can take away part of their right. One of the rights they have is وَأَجْرُوهُنَّ فِي الْمَضَاجِعِ. You can stay away from that. These are the measures that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself mentioned in the Quran. And these are the way to discipline them, not by the way of punching them or insulting them or assaulting them and so on and so forth. Now, there's a difference though. The difference between what you have just mentioned, like the points I made, the husband's right, those things should be observed. Because if you go to the parents and they ask for their daughter, they say, okay, this is your wife. You take the woman. You are responsible for her. Let's say you went to Africa or Asia, you get married, and you brought a daughter here. She might know one or two people, but it's purely your responsibility. That's the responsibility that the Quran is giving you, or Islamic religion is giving you, that you are responsible for her security, for her welfare and everything. So if you are responsible for somebody's welfare, why can't you be responsible for what she do or where she goes? She has the right to work or to own a business. There's no question about that. But if she's going, let's for instance, we're in Minnesota, those of you who are online, maybe in different states. Okay, let's say your wife asks you, okay, I'm going to Cool Rapids. If she has to change direction to St. Paul, she should be able to tell you, oh, my dear, or honey, I told you that I was going to Cool Rapids, but now I have to change course. I will be in St. Paul. At least you know. Because if she doesn't tell you, what if something happens to her? Even in the society, the first person who is responsible is who? The husband. And so Islam knew this, envisaged this 1,434 years ago, envisaged that's the responsibility of the man. You see that being implemented right here, right now. And so that part of the right that you have, if she has to go somewhere to let you know, and it is just good. It is just good for the wife or the husband to do the same thing. If you go somewhere and say, okay, my dear, I'm going here or I'm going to work, at least she knows where you've gone. Because why? If anything were to happen to you, you'll be held responsible. So it takes away part of their rights. The question is quite in place. It takes away part of their right because when they don't fulfill their obligations to you, it diminishes their right to you as a husband.
Thank you, Imam. I'll take the next caller here. Folks, if you're just joining us, please dial *61. We have Imam Dukuly on the line tonight, and he's speaking on women's right in Islam. So please dial *61 and have a say in this matter. I'll take the next caller here. I believe this is Kutumu Kamara calling from Minneapolis. Kutumu Kamara, your question for the Imam.
Hi, Mr. Dukuly. Thank you so much for being on this forum.
Thank you.
Very helpful to us. I have two questions here, but I'll be brief. And the first one here is, I was saying, like in the Mandingo tradition, there's a saying that they usually say woman is a slave. For those who maybe can't understand Mandingo or restate that, in Mandingo they usually say Moswe Johnny. So, and I know, a lot of time when I was small, my parents always said that Moswe Johnny. And I know that, Islam doesn't accept slavery. I read something about that. So is there anything that speaks to that in the Quran, or it is just maybe a traditional perspective? That's my first question. The second question, can you maybe outline, I know it's huge, women's rights and responsibility in Islam. It is really huge. Can you outline at least a few to we the women that you would think you prioritize within the American culture? You think, this is our right, the women's right, and these are the women's responsibility, and they are not doing what they should do, and they are right. The men are not seeing their right. I would really appreciate if you could just outline a few of those. Thank you, Mr. Dukuly.
Thank you, Mrs. Kumar.
Thank you so much, my dear sister. Thank you for those profound questions you have just asked. Well, there's no such thing in Islam when it talks about slavery. Actually, Islam, but let me just go back a little bit and then you understand it in totality. Prior to Islam, the Arabian Peninsula, or perhaps the whole world, it was in total and absolute darkness. Women were slaves. Women didn't have rights. They didn't have economic rights. When the man married a woman, all her property and everything he owned, she cannot even do anything with that. And then he could also dispose of a woman without even thinking about anything. Like, for instance, a man could marry a woman and today say, I don't want you again. And then not only that, he will not free her to go, but she will not be allowed to marry to someone else. And she will be in that kind of situation. And the women were treated that way throughout the history. And so Islam actually came to liberate them, to liberate women from that kind of, from the shackle of slavery, from the shackle of injustice, from the shackle of inequality. And so Islam came to restore their rights. One of the reasons why the people in Arabian Peninsula fought Rasulullah ﷺ was the fact that when he was asked, what is the position of women in his new religion that you are bringing to us? He said, we are equal. Okay? He said, we are equal. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that, brothers and sisters who are listening. He said, Inna khalaqinakum min zakal wa untha. I have created you from male and female. So that shows equality. وَجَعَلْنَاكُمْ شُعُوبًا لِكَبَائِرَ لِتَعَارَفُوا. And I make you into tribes and nations in order to know each other, in order to identify with each other's difficulty or maybe joy and so on and so forth, to know each other. Because if you say, I'm a dingo from, let's say, from Mali. Oh, so my grandfather came from Mali. So then you start to find connections. But if you say Madingo, or if Allah has just created us individually, nobody will have sympathy for the other. And so Islam came to restore the right of women in the world, and that took place during the lifetime of Rasulullah and throughout the history. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, "Fi hujjatul wada." This is the farewell pilgrimage. When he gave this khutbah in Arafah, what did he say? He said, "Ittaqullaha fi nisaikum." He said, "Fear Allah regarding your women." Regarding your women, he said to us, he said, "Khuliqat al-mar'a min jila'in." He said, "Women are created from the rib." He said, فَإِنَّ أَعْوَجَ مِدْيَا أَعْلَاهُ. He said, the most curved or crooked part of the rib is the upper one. إِذَا حَتَّى تُقِيمُهُ كَسَرْتَهُ. If you want to straighten it up, you break it into pieces. وَإِن تَتْرُكَ لَمْ يَزَلْ أَعْوَجَ. If you leave it like that, it will remain crooked. He said, فَاسْتَوْصُوا بِالنِّسَاءِ خَيْرًا. He said, therefore treat your women kindly. He said, خِيَارُكُمْ لِنِسَائِهِ. The best of you men, you believers, you believing men, are those who are kind to their women. And so Rasulullah, he could not have said all of this beautiful thing and advising us. What is the greatest thing that we need in Islam? Is God consciousness, fear of Allah. He attached that with how we treat the women. He said, fear Allah regarding your women, how you treat them. And so there's no such thing as slaves in Islam. What did he say? In the same khutbah. He said, فَإِنَّهُنَّ إِنْدَكُنْ أَوَانٍ. He said, they are committed partners to you. So how can we have a business? You have 50%, I have 50%, then you consider me to be a slave. How can we consider people who bring the qurrata ayn, the comfort of our eyes? The woman is pregnant for 9 months. She carried this burden over sickness, and then she bring a child. Now you can call it, my son or my daughter, and perpetuating your family tree. Though that woman is the cause for this. She brings that child for you. You don't call it Dukuly. You call it Kamara. You call it Kone. You call it Kroma. So that is a woman who should be treated with kindness. Okay, because they go through all of this suffering and so on and so forth. And so that's the first part of your question. The second part of your question is that we should outline the right of women. It's so many. Number one right you have is to be treated kindly. That's what the Quran says. Is to be treated kindly. Number two is you have to be dignified. Number three, you have to be fed by your husband. Number four, you have to be clothed by him. Number six, if you get sick, he should take you to the hospital. Number seven, he should give you protection. Number eight, he should teach you al-ilm al-shari'i wa ma tahtaju min umur ibadat. He should be able to teach you Islamic Sharia, the law governing Islam, as well as things that you need to know in order to pray to Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But inculcated into these rights is his right. Because if he's given the right to protect you, that means he should know where you go. It's not like nowadays, why you don't tell me where I go, or you don't choose my friends. He should, because why? They say he should also, he should keep you away from bad friends, bad companionship, and the bad places. Your husband don't drink. He doesn't go to nightclub, but you, the only thing you do is to get drunk or to go to nightclub and say, well, this does not befit my religion or my belief system. And so, honey, you can't do this. He can stop you. Or you have a friend who will take you to bad places where, when he feels threatened, by the way, that friendship can ruin your relationship with him, that friendship, he says, no, I don't want this friendship, you should go away from it. It's not the question of being a slave. It's a question of exercising a right, inculcated into that right, is your personal security and the security of your relationship with him. Do you understand that, sister? And so these are the rights that you have. However, let me just quickly point out, given where we are, Islam does not say that if the woman has a means to support her husband or to share with him, she should withhold. There is no such thing in Islam either. Because Rasulullah told us, it's a man nafa'ani mal kamalu Khadija. It's a no money benefited me like Khadija's money. Khadija used to spend on him. There's no question of that. If you have and you love your husband and you love your kids and you know that it is difficult for one hand to make it here, you can share with him, no problem. The only thing, however, he cannot do is to demand it. He could be able to negotiate with you and say, oh, honey, you know, things are a little bit tight in this country, economic situation. I'd like for you to help me, you know. No woman that truly loves her husband will say no. There must be a problem. There must be a problem that will cause her to say no. But if she's truly in love, and then you're also being sympathetic towards her cause, you respect her, you dignify her, there's no question that, believe you me, there's nothing the man can say to her husband, to his wife, she'll be in position to say no. Except perhaps the way we approach them, the manner in which we approach them, Sometimes we insult our wives, and then in the night they say, okay, can't sleep with me. We can't do that. Islam does not allow these type of things. Do not insult them. Do not assault them. Do not belittle them in front of anyone. You should always approach them with respect and dignity. That's what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and Islamic teachings require of us. I hope, sister, I was able to answer part of your question.
Thank you. And if he wasn't, by all means, please dial *61. Please note that there are no limit to how many questions you can ask. As long as we have time to take them, we'll be more than happy to take your questions again. So *61, folks, is what you need to dial to speak directly with Imam Dukuly on the subject of women's rights in Islam. So if you asked a question before, you want to ask again, that's *61. With that said, I'll take the next caller here, and let me also recognize the next caller for being the one who made this arrangement tonight. The Liberian Diaspora Forum is grateful to Honorable Al Donzo, who made this arrangement for Imam Dukuly to be on the show tonight. So, Mr. Donzo, thank you and welcome to the forum. Your question for the Imam.
Thank you very much for that excellent introduction. Imam, salam alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Imam, thank you very well for your good job in our community. We applaud you for your excellent work, and we pray that God will give you long life. Having said that, my question has to do with equality in Islam between men and women. I understood from what I read in the Quran that Allah stated that both persons have equal rights. Now, on the other side, it is also stated in the Quran that men are the protector of the women. So, looking at that statement, is that somehow can be interpreted that men have more rights than women in Islam? Thank you.
Absolutely not. When it comes to our religious practices and things that we're supposed to do, we are all equal on that. Unless some circumstances will inhibit the performance of women, and which we all know. Like, for instance, since we talk Islam, we have to be bold. Like for instance, menstrual period or maybe postnatal bleeding. It can prevent women from participating like in a salat or fasting or so on and so forth, or making tawaf, hawla Kaaba, all of those kind of stuff. But with the exception of those, when it comes to religious practice, pray 5 daily prayer, they are to pray, give zakat. If they have work, they have to give zakat. They have to fast the month of Ramadan, and they have to go to Hajj. And those questions actually being answered by Allah Himself, subhanahu wa ta'ala. And like in Surah Al-Ahzab, where He talk about إِنَّ الْمُسْلِمِينَ وَالْمُسْلِمَاتِ وَالْمُؤْمِنِينَ وَالْمُؤْمِنَاتِ وَالْقَانِتِينَ, that, and so on and so forth, all the way to the end. Address all the single position that every single person has. Like, for example, they believe in a Muslim and a Muslim woman, a Muslim man and a Muslim woman, a believing man and a believing woman, and those who are submitted to the teachings of Allah and among the men and the women, and those who have fear for Allah, and those among the men and the women, وَالْمُتَصَدِّقِينَ وَالْمُتَصَدِّقَاتِ, and the truthful ones, وَالصَّادِقِينَ وَالصَّادِقَاتِ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala went on, and وَذَاكِرِينَ اللَّهَ كَثِيرًا وَذَاكِرَاتِ, and those men who remember Allah plenty, and the women, and وَالْحَافِظِينَ فُرُوجَهُمْ وَالْحَافِظَاتِ, and the men who respect their chastity, take care of their private part, and likewise the women. That means they don't commit lewdness. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this verse actually gives the sense of equality. However, in our distinct responsibility, we assume higher responsibility. We assume higher responsibility, and that's why we say initially, when you perform that duty, in return for appreciating your gesture, she should be obedient to you. It doesn't mean that she's a slave. Sit here is that, no, that kind of forceful way, no. It got to be mutual understanding, mutual respect in this case. Now, assuming high responsibility is actually a sacrificial role that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala developed upon man. Okay, when you want to do something, consult with your wife, your partner. Okay? And you mutually agree. And so when you implement, if it goes wrong, you still take the blame as a father, as a leader in the house. So Allah has given us distinct role. Number two, they also have a role. Have you ever seen men getting pregnant? So the roles are distinct, equal but distinct. In terms of performance, we have different way of performing, and there are different ways of performing. Now, for instance, if I want to say, woman will get pregnant for 9 months, we don't care that burden. They carry the burden. Okay. Then also Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, feed yourself, or do this, do that. So what would be the role of man in their lives? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala separated the responsibility, and so it devolves upon you. So if she can bring you the comfort of the eye, then you provide the food for her. Just like you back home, when you call people to go work for you on your farm, who give them the food? You provide the food for them. This is natural thing that people do. So you provide the food for them. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, take care of her. Number two, the women are created to create comfort for you, brother. This is your comfort zone. When you have problems everywhere, and if you really have a good relationship with your wife, and overnight, she can comfort you more than anything else. More than that also, they play a role that your mother even cannot play anymore. When you're a baby, your mom used to bathe you, your mom used to do everything for you. When you become mature, brother, if you're to fall ill, your wife can bathe you. Your mom can no longer do that for you. They play that role for you. And so therefore, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is asking you, if He's giving you this ayahs and this position in order to generate more sympathy in you towards them. Like Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam would do with his wives. And so Arijalu Kawamuna ala Nisa. It says women are the head of the home. Ala Nisa bima fadallahu ba'dahum ala ba'd. In terms of stature, not in terms of preference. This is where people don't understand the ayahs of the Quran. In terms of the way God made us, it made us stronger. We can endure a lot of suffering. We can endure a lot of stuff that women cannot take. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, bima fadallahu ba'dahum ala ba'd. And then the second reason is and because you spend out of your wealth. So how you don't spend on your wife, you don't feed her, you don't do anything. So I'm the chief. No, the chief, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say, number one, I give you strength that I did not give them. Because of that, I make you leader. Number two, because you spend out of your wealth on them. That's why I give you that role. But when you spend out of your wealth, it does not make them slaves, though. They are not slaves. And so we need to understand all of that as we proceed with this conversation, Uncle. Thank you for that excellent question. It's an important question, but it is important for us to understand that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not intend that. Like, for instance, let me just conclude with this on this particular question. Like, if you look at the military, even in the United States, they don't send women on the front line. They don't. They provide different services because this is not their role. But maybe another question somebody asked about why women don't be imam. Because all the religion, be it Christianity, Judaism, Islam, and so on and so forth, all of them have been on the front line. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us a leadership role in order for us to be a sacrificial lamb. If you look at all of the international instruments on human rights issues, like the Geneva Convention, United Nations Charter, Amnesty International, Human Rights Watch, all of those things, they provide so many provisions that protect women. Okay, protect the women, the elderly, the children. Why? We're all human beings, but because this is not their role, they are not to be on the front line. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us to be the sacrificial lamb for them. It doesn't mean that they are slaves or we are slaves. We are equal partners in this relationship.
Thank you, Imam. Thank you. That's brilliant. A few housekeeping stuff here. Please be reminded that tomorrow, Monday, tomorrow, we will possibly have the Truth and Reconciliation Commission Chair, Honorable Councillor Jerome Verde. As many of you know, we have scheduled him before, and something came up. So then he contacted me, or we contacted each other a few days ago. So he said to appear tomorrow. But I must also note that there was a text message circulating today that his only family member was executed in Liberia today. So I don't know if that's going to have any effect on the show tomorrow. I haven't heard from him, so let's plan on having him tomorrow. He's going to come tomorrow night and speak on the past, present, and the feature of TRC report, why it must be implemented. And the other thing is, if you want to listen to Imam Dukuly's appearance tonight, by all means, please dial 559-726-1299 and the same access code you have. You can listen to the recording after the show, that is, and shortly after that, we will also upload it on YouTube, just as we've done with many of our past shows. So if you're just joining us, welcome. We have Imam Dukuly discussing women rights in Islam. We encourage you to participate. Please dial *61 on your phone. so that you can have a say, in this very important discussion. Imam, let me go to something that you just mentioned before you concluded, the issue of women not being allowed to be imam. Now, I don't know if there are any circumstances under which women can be imam. I think I've heard from some other religious scholars that in a situation where you have a group of women and there's no qualified men, to perform prayer with them, that the most educated woman can be allowed to perform the duties of an imam with her friend women. This is not fact. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think I overheard that. But the fact that there's limitation to on how and when they can be imam, don't you see that as a way as a form of taking away some right? I mean, if you have the most qualified female, but yet just because of her gender, she's not allowed to be imam for a group of men who are not as qualified as she is religiously, doesn't that signify some sort of disparity right-wise, Imam?
Okay, very good. Thank you so much for the question. That question is very profound. It's not taking away right. Number one, woman can be imam, like you rightly stated, among the women. Or a woman can lead a prayer in a house, in her home. For instance, let's say the woman is highly educated and perhaps the husband doesn't know anything. She can lead the prayers in the house with the family, and then what she's required to do is to teach the husband so he can take his place. Because, they have what we call nakisatun fidin. They not in brain, but certain circumstances can cause them to stop praying. So how can you make someone an imam who has monthly limitation? Okay, they have limitation on monthly basis. Okay, that's number one. Number two, let's assume that the woman who is our imam, she's pregnant. How can she perform the prayers the way we do? It's a difficult circumstance for her. Number three, the women are attractive creatures of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so if they were to pass in front of the men, they can easily distract us. Women are not distracted when we stand in front of them. They can be distracted by our appearance before them. But men can easily be distracted by seeing a beautiful woman leading the prayer. They can be distracted. So these are all circumstances. The wisdom of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is that no, they can be. Number four is an additional burden for them. The women are ra'iyatul lijaz baytiha. The woman is the head of her husband's house because they control the children. The children spend more time with them. They spend more time in the house, and so on and so forth. So how can you give an additional burden? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in his wisdom, he did not appoint any woman, any female messenger or prophet. He did not. Because why? Because of these reasons. And then number five, like I stated, the religion, anyone, forget about religion. There's something that people are opposed to. When it comes to making changes, particularly to change the status quo, the way people used to doing something, somebody come into it and say, want to change it, you become a target. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not want to use women for that. Under Islamic Sharia, when there is war somewhere, women should be protected, safeguarded, the elderly, the children, the women, the weak ones, and so on and so forth. So how come Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give them all of this immunity and they say, okay, come and lead? Now, if you have a qualified woman, people can go and learn from her. Like Sayyidatna Aisha, Ridwanullahi ta'ala alayha, the wife of Rasulullah, she's rated to be number 10 in terms of recording the hadith, the sayings of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in the whole Islamic teachings. So scholars used to go to her, and behind the curtain, she would be behind the curtain, and she would teach them the sayings of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So there is no prohibition on that. And one of the issues, like maybe in terms of one of the things I like to add, or maybe two things to add to your question, is that the economic rights. In the areas of economic rights, we have to remember that even in Europe until the 19th century, women did not have the right to own their own property. They did not have their own right. So Islam, 1300 earlier of that time, has already recognized the women's right. In the United States, brothers, those of you who are listening, and you can fact check this. Whatever I'm telling you, you can go and check it. In the United States, it took 40 years in the Congress in order for them to pass a piece of legislation that will allow women to vote, to be adopted with what they call in the universal adult suffrage. They have the right to vote. In the United States, it took 40 years in the United States Congress, and then it went out to different states for them to ratify. It took that long in order for them to even allow women to participate in the process of politics in this country. And so, and secondly, there is no restriction in Islamic law that says women cannot work or have a profession, like sometimes in some Islamic countries where the women are not allowed to work, and so on, unless if it's a mutual agreement and that the husband can fully provide for her needs and everything. But otherwise, there is no restriction. It's just a matter of culture. It's just a matter of maybe perhaps individualism. It is not based on any concrete reason in Islam, and so on and so forth. So they have right to education. They have right to economic prosperity. They have right to own their own property. They have right to dispose of their property. They have right to keep it or not to share with the husband. They have that right. They have the right in totality. There is no if and what. There is nothing like that in Islam. Everything they have is their own. They can decide to share or not to share.
Thank you. And everything you have is for both of you.
Of course. Whatever you have is for you, both of you. But that's what you went for.
That's interesting. But actually, of all the reasons that you cited as to why women can be imam, the one thing that I've never heard before is the idea that a women imam will be a lot more of a distraction to men than that. So I totally agree with that. So I'll take the next caller here. This is Isaac Harris, Brother Harris. I believe he's calling from Crystal. Harris, your question for Imam Dukuly.
Hello.
Hello, yes. Isaac. Your line is open.
Thank you for taking my call. I'd like to say hi to the Imam. Imam, how you doing?
I'm doing great. And yourself, Harris?
I'm fine, thank you. It's so good that I have you on the show tonight. Because on one occasion we had a guest on this forum, and if I can recall very well, some question came up regarding women's rights also, and a question came up. The guest was asked and you also just stated that a Muslim man can marry a non-Muslim woman. He can marry a Christian woman. But on that show, I want you to say yes or no and answer why. Why Muslim women are not allowed to marry non-Muslim men, and if women are equal partner with men, why should the men be allowed to marry non-Muslim and the women not allowed to marry non-Muslim?
Okay, but let me thank you so much. But let me correct that. Muslims are not allowed to marry non-Muslim. They non-believers. But let me put it that way: non-believers. But we're allowed to marry the women of the people of the book. Okay. Allah has his reason why he said these laws. But let me tell you something, and then you will see the rationale behind why the Muslim can marry, but the Muslim women are not allowed to what they call. Because why? Number one, if you are listening previously to this, when a husband can perform his duties, his responsibility to his wife, she's required to obey him. Do you understand that? And so, if a Muslim woman go into the warlock and she's already a Muslim, the husband could change him, or the children that will come out of him, and she will not have no power over that. So that's the main reason why. Because why? She's allowed to obey her husband. In this case, if she says no, there's already a problem in the house. So Allah doesn't want him to go to go through all of that. But for the man, if you have a child, mostly the children follow their father. So that is already solved. But it's not solved for the woman, because when she go into the warlock, definitely the children will follow that. What if she doesn't like that? And they said that become a problem. There will be a problem. But in most instances, we know that. All of you know. The children follow the father. And number two, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has his own wisdom. Has his own wisdom in this. And so it's not just a question of, even those women are to be qualified. And then, number three, Islam does not force a Christian woman to be a Muslim. But in most instances, if a Muslim woman gets married to a Christian, she will end up becoming a Christian. You know that. If you look at the statistics in the world, if a Muslim woman get married to a Christian man, she's most definitely she will become a Christian. But in Islam, we are not to force them to be. And so you find a lot of Muslims observing that. You can teach them, and they can choose on their way. Like I speak to one of my uncles right here, right in Minnesota here. His wife was a Christian. They got married, and he never ever told her, join me. She was reading on her own when she discovered, so well, I want to be a Muslim, and she became a Muslim. Today she's a perfect. She even practiced better than most of our sisters I know. You know, and but she was not forced into it. I have sat with her, asked her, why you became a Muslim? He said, because I read this, I read that, I became convinced. And so Islam does not force anyone to become a Muslim. But in most instances, like I say, if you join, so it's no question of disparity. There's no question of discrimination. It's a question of how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants things to be. And this is one thing that nobody can question, though. Like we don't question the laws in America. Like, for instance, you know, even though some of us try to talk about it, like, for instance, if something were to happen with you and your wife tonight, and she called police, what happens? They will not even ask you. When the police come in, they just take you to jail. And so these are all issues. So it's not just about Islam. It's about also practices, cultural practices in certain places, even here, you know. And so do we see that as a question of disparity or inequality or injustice? If we see it as injustice, then we should be able to go to the Congress to change the law, to go to our individual state legislature to change the law. But these are things that prevail right here, right now. Forget about Islam. With things that happen right on our feet.
Okay. Thank you, Imam. I'll take the next question here. And the next caller is Honorable Mohammed Dukuly, President of MMA. Mr. Dukuly, calling from Brooklyn, I believe. Welcome to the forum. Your question for Imam Dukuly.
Thank you, Mr. Kumar. Imam, thank you so much. My question tonight is, in Saudi Arabia, being one of the renowned Islamic country, women are not allowed to drive. Is that an Islamic reason, or just because if they are countries? Can you elaborate on that, please? Thank you.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you for that important question. Number one, I've said that women are entitled to education. So let's assume, how do they go to school? Okay. Number two, they are entitled to economic prosperity. That means they can conduct their own business. So that's not Khadija, the business you are doing, and the business she sent Rasulullah to do for her, and at the end of the day, they got married. Okay, how do they do that? Number three, they have rights to visit their families. So how do they do that? All of those things are cultural things that are dominating perhaps the face of Islam. There is no provision in Islam that prevents them from doing that. Absolutely. However, if the husband can afford for somebody to drive her to drive his wife, that's fine. Even back home, all our ministers before our senators, our representatives, they have drivers for their wives. Some of them don't even know how to drive. It is only a matter of concern because it's in Saudi Arabia. This is the life that a majority of the people have lived, even in Africa. The women, most of the women drive only because they came to America. They were not driving back when it wasn't a problem. They have drivers that will take them from place to place. But it's not Islam, though. It's a cultural thing. It's a cultural thing. Just like some of the things that, I know it will come up. Let me just address it in this one question because since we're talking about culture and religion, like, for instance, honor killing. People kill their daughters because they got raped. People kill their daughter because they have an affair with somebody that they didn't like, and they kill all because she looked at someone. All of those issues are like in Afghanistan, the woman wasted acid in her daughter's head. It came all the way in her brain, and as a result, she died from that. Only because the girl looked at someone. This is not part of Islam. It's a cultural thing. But because those people profess to be Muslims, so when they do something wrong, it appears as if Islam endorses some of those things that they do wrong. There's no such thing, no honor killing in Islam. Because somebody say, so I'm going to kill you because of so. There's no such thing. There's no honor killing in Islam. There's no such thing. But people practice that. Muslims do. And so that's the difference between Islam and then Muslims. There are a lot of good Muslims, but there are bad ones. And so when those bad ones do something wrong, it reflects on the entire community. Okay, number one, people used to kill and bury the girls alive, in fact, in before Islam came. Because why? They saw that a girl was a disgrace to them. They used to fight tribal wars. They needed boys to be able to replace them. And so they saw boys as a strength, and they saw women as weakness, even though they failed to know that even the boys' children are born by women. So they would bury their girl children alive. And those things came. Islam came and prohibited those things. Even to the point it says that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will ask those who did that on the day of judgment, why they bury those girls alive. They have to answer for those things. So the same Islam cannot give right to father or mother to kill their daughters because of a mistake that they may have made or perceived mistake. Because some of it is based on perception. It's not even on reality because somebody did something. Only because they perceive maybe the girl will go out with this guy and will do like this guy and they will go and kill the girl. There is no such thing in Islam. It's purely a cultural thing. It's traditional. It's customary in their areas. It's not because of Islam.
Thank you. Folks, if you're just joining us, please dial *61 to have a say, to speak directly with Imam Dukuly for here in Minnesota. Sister Kutum Kamara made a comeback. I'm assuming she has a follow-up question. I'll open online. Kutum Kamara, welcome back to the Liberian Diaspora Forum. Your question for Imam Dukuly.
Mr. Dukuly, thank you for answering my previous question. I have two more questions, another two questions within. The first one, what differ women's right in Islam from women's right from the Western perspective? Because I'm seeing what you're explaining, I mean, I'm not going to say they're the same, but I mean, let's hear from you. The next one here is this, I have to elaborate a little bit. In Islam, men are allowed to marry up to 4 women. But the rule here is those women should be treated fairly and equally. And that's one thing I usually argue with people that, I mean, if you have 4 things, even as a human being, you have 4 shirts, nice shirt, you probably like one the best. And if you like that one, you either choose to wear it every day or choose not to wear it and keep it very nice and clean because you like it. And that would bring it and you treat it different from the others. So right there, you break the rule. So as a woman or a Muslim woman and your husband you are married to, he has other women, he's not treating you right because you accept it because that's the religion. What should you do as a woman? What step you should take?
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, sister. I know this has always been a concern for many women and men too. Number one, let's go to your first question. The first question you asked is what's the difference between the right of women in Islam and that of the Western society. That's a big difference, though. The difference is, number one, implementation of the right. Number two, Islam gives those rights, and the Western society has taken away those rights. If you look at, and it's only based on economic reasons. Like, for instance, if you have a husband, and the husband is working, and you are working, your economic prosperity or strength will be stronger than one. So the purchasing power will be stronger than one. So if he was the only one that working, going out to earn your living, and then looking at all the expenditure, so the purchasing power will be limited. So how the companies will make money? So the best we can do is to take away all those rights, allow them to do whatever they want to do. They call it freedom. Go out, do what you want to do, work, earn, and this, that. At the end of the day, we say 50-50. We say 50-50. And so that's the difference. But if you were to go to a Muslim land, or even Africa, in most instances, except now, maybe start changing, we saw our parents be responsible for our mothers. They fed them. They give them clothes. They did everything for them. We saw that. And many of you can attest to that. That happened in your lives. And so that's the difference. Otherwise, it should not be any different. Another thing I'd like to add to that is that these laws are there on the books. But the question of implementation, whether Muslims themselves are implementing this, is altogether a different ballgame. You understand that? And so I want to start right there with that. Now, the most important question from you is the question of a Muslim man having more than one wife. Yeah, Muslim man having more than one wife. Actually, only Islam, in its only Islamic religion, actually emphasize one man, one wife. It gives the leverage to men to take more than one, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also knows his creatures. The desire men have to have more than one. Allah knows that. So this is not hidden. And because Allah doesn't want the man to commit lewdness, to commit adultery, to engage in sinful acts. So he said, okay, since you can't be satisfied with one, you could take more than one. But if you take more than one, you have to be just. Now, you use the word love. There is no such thing in the Quran. Allah talk about justice. Okay, so there's a difference between love, because you can love blindly. Okay, but justice is the issue. It's no love, because like you say, if you have two things, you can love one more than the other one. So it's a question of how you treat it. Now, the treatment is what the emphasis is on. Like, for instance, even let's forget about even the women here, because this question, it has so many attachments that we need to deal with, and then you get the picture in totality. Let's say between your kids, if you have two children, you know that if you give 50 to one, you have to give 50 to the other. But how many of you can do that? You're the mother. You don't do that. Most of our parents don't do that. Then somebody will say, "Oh, Batama, here is this for you," and they don't share with the other children. Do you know that it's haram? It's forbidden in Islam. And during the lifetime of Rasulullah, one of his companions took something and gave to one of the sons. And the mother said, "No, you can't do this until you give to all of them." He said no. He said, "Okay, you know what? I'm going to consult the Prophet on this matter." The lady came to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He said, "My husband has taken this and gave to one of my sons." The Prophet asked her, "Did he give to the rest of the children?" He said, "No." When he sent for the companion, he came. Rasulullah said he can't do that. So these are the issues that we're talking about, that right and justice. Now, for instance, why in fact this law? Let's deal with the law itself. Why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say, Masna wa suras wa ruba'? This particular law was legislated after Ghazwat Uhud. After the Battle of Uhud, many men died. And they have a lot of qualified, a lot of good women with these companions of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam who did not have any man. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in his wisdom, and today is happening. Like for instance, our soldiers went to battle in Iraq and Afghanistan, and some of them, that majority of them, they have widows here. So what happened to these women? It's a question, actually, it's not about having sympathy for men. It's about having sympathy for women. But women don't understand this. It's not about the man. It's about the woman. How can we accommodate those people who have lost their men in the service of the nation? How do we accommodate them? So that's the issue. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala legislated, that's the only way those women who lost their men in the cause of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to have gained wedlock through other men who are already married. And so, but they came there with dignity, because why? Their husbands died for the cause of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so they were to be accommodated. And that's Islam. That's what Islam says. So now Islam requires that if I take more than one, Allah said be just. Now that justice, like for instance, if I have two wives, and maybe I have one with 3 children, and the other one with 2 kids, and they live in different homes. So are you suggesting that I put the same amount of food here and the same amount of food out? No, that's not equality. That's not justice. Because why? There are 4 people here, and there are 3 people on the other side. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will require me to give them equal, not equal shares, but whatever food I put will be commensurate with the number of people in there. That's justice. Okay, you have a wife. Maybe she can wear 10 yards, and the other one she's slim. Maybe she can only wear 5 yards. So how can you give the 2 of them 5 yards? You can't do that. That's not the justice Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But Allah is saying, if you do this for this, do it for this. If you feed her, feed this one. You give her shelter, give the other one shelter. You respect this, respect that. And so on and so forth. If you give 100, give the other 100. So that's the kind of thing that Islam requires of the husband to do. but it's not a question of love. If you have two things, Allah did not talk about love in this case. It talk about justice. But if you know that you will not be just, Allah said, then take one. So Islam is the one that emphasizes one wife. But now let's go to Christianity, sister. You talk about 4. Christianity in the book of Isaiah 4 talks about 7. It says, in that day, it says 7 women will walk to one man. Let us be called by thy name. We will eat our own food and wear our own clothing, but let us only be called by thy name to take away our reproach. So why does that indicate? The Bible is predicting that there will come a day there will be surplus women in the world. There will not be sufficient men to be able to accommodate them in terms of wedlock. And so the Bible is predicting that so men can be prepared to accommodate the situation. It's not about us. It's about you, sister. What if you are not married? If you are not married and then you have certain needs to be satisfied, Allah doesn't want that need to be satisfied through committing lewdness. He wants it in the proper way. A woman can service more than 1 or 2 wives. Man can do that and stay strong to move about, because that's the nature Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created man with, you know. So I hope partly I answered the question. Maybe some of them might not be satisfactory, but it is not based on my personal intentions. It is based on what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has said.
Thank you, Imam. Thank you. Folks, *61 is what you need to dial if you have any follow-up question or new question. There's still a lot of you here. We are delighted you've remained with us. That's *61, and I ask Imam Dukuly for clarification. If you have any comment or concern, we'll be more than happy to open up your line. Imam Dukuly, I have a test question here, and it comes from a 267 number. The question is, what are the Islamic reasons for divorce? What would be the justification for a woman to divorce her husband?
Thank you so much. Thank you. I like the audience tonight. They're asking profound questions. Number one, let's start first. Woman in Islam is not allowed to ask for divorce except for the following reasons. Number one, when her security is jeopardized, if she feels threatened that she's no longer secure, not in terms of how she feel about maybe her husband get a different woman and so on and so forth. Not that. Her personal security. Number two, if the husband is not fulfilling his obligations to her. Okay, the first obligation is the dowry. So you go to marry a woman and then you say, okay, the woman said my dowry would be, I want you to give me $2,000 or maybe $10,000. And because you like the woman, it's okay. You know what? I promise you, when we get married, in 1 year's time, I will give you that dowry. Okay? So the 1 year comes and he doesn't pay. In Sharia, if that dowry is not paid, he's not qualified to sleep with her. Unless she extends it. She said, okay, I extend it. And that willingly though, not by way of forcing her to do that. So if that is not paid, then he disqualifies himself to sleep with her until that dowry is paid. Okay, she can leave it for this. Okay, okay, I will marry you. I want you to teach me Islam. And then she gets married to you, and you don't teach her Islam. She has right to say, okay, since you didn't teach me Islam, I'm exiting. She can ask for that. She can ask for divorce. Okay, you don't feed her, and she's hungry in the house. She can or perhaps you're beating her up. She can also ask for divorce because that also includes her personal security. Under these circumstances, she's right to ask for divorce. Other than those, she cannot ask because Rasul says, woman should not ask for it unless under these extreme circumstances where she's threatening and sometimes the way sometimes our people behave, they're beating on their women and so on and so forth, hating their heart and so on and so forth. If that is a circumstance that she lives under, she can ask for divorce because she's threatened. Her life is threatened and so on and so forth. Her health is threatened and so on and so forth. She can do that, yes.
Okay, thank you. Well, keep the text messages coming, 612-203-3820. That is indeed another way of getting your questions over here. I'll take the next caller. This number has no name, so I don't know who it is, but the last 4 digits, 2425. Would you please tell us your name, where you're calling from, and your question for Imam Dukuly, 2425.
Yeah, Imam Dukuly, Assalamu alaikum. This is Lai Sako calling from Rochester, Minnesota.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Haji.
Imam, my question is actually this is not a question. People somehow consider women to be problematic in the war. What you have to say regarding that?
They are problematic.
Yes.
In what sense, though?
Yeah.
Well,
some people.
Yeah. Okay.
Women. Yeah.
Okay.
I say women are problematic because it's kind of, in fact, very hard for them to understand. Even if you're trying to convince them somehow, they might not even want to listen to you. In that kind of sense.
Well, it depends. Also, here is the problem, Haji. Women, by nature, by creation, and the circumstances they go through, they think differently from us. And then number two, the privileged position we have is not preference as a man, but most of the time we use this as a way of intimidating others. Now, we are mutual friends, husband and wife, or women and men. We're supposed to be mutual friends, okay? But how I'm part of this friendship, that my opinion is not taken at all. My opinion is subject to review. Every time a woman says something, it's not important. And this is one of the way that we need to change in ourselves as men. We have to respect them. There are doctors among women. They are knowledgeable people, scholars, and so on and so forth. They are. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not diminish their ability to learn at all, not only because we are men, but how many of us can consult with them? So when something goes wrong, and then we let them know. But initially, when we want to do something, even some of us can even consult with them. They advise us. We don't go by their advice. Oh, I don't want to listen to you, because we dismiss them outrightly. Number two, the manner of approach is responsible for the breaking down of most of our homes. The way we approach our women or our partners, if I may say. The same word come. It can be an insult too. The same word C-O-M-E, come. Come here. It becomes an insult. So you find people, particularly in the society, that give them more protection to resist. You find them resistant to some of these approaches. And so now people say, oh, women are high. Of course they are created that way. So that's why you are asked to be patient with them. I also say you are a shepherd. You know why all of the prophets were people who raised cattle? The reason is that they will be patient when they lead us, with us. They will be patient with us. And so I also call you a shepherd. So if you're a shepherd, you need to be patient with your flocks. Do you understand that? So you have to be patient with your wife. You have to be patient with your kids. We have to be patient even with your neighbors. And so the most supreme partner to you is your wife. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say, be patient with them. Be patient with them. Be patient with them.
Thank you, Imam. This question comes from Musa Wale, text message from Musa Wale from Philadelphia. And I'm sure the question goes back to the one you answered earlier before Brother Sako came on. When he talked about the reasons, a justifiable religious reason for a woman to divorce her husband. I think the question is, what is the vice versa of the question on woman divorcing a man? So I'm not sure what he means by that, but I'm understanding it to mean the other way around. What is the vice versa?
Yeah, maybe the question is, what is the right of the man to divorce the woman?
I guess that's what he's trying to say, right?
Okay. If that's the question, brother, the one of the most difficult thing in Islam is divorce. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Let's start with the hadith first. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, "Aqbal halal inda Allah at-talaq." Is the most detestable thing in the sight of Allah, even though it's lawful, is divorce. Allah doesn't want divorce. That's why it created conditions around it very difficult for men. You can divorce, number one, if the woman, like for instance, you're a Muslim and you marry a Muslim woman and she abandoned her religion. It's a reason to divorce. and you advise her from time to time, is a cardinal reason to divorce. You can divorce for the sake of Allah. Al-hubbu fillah wal-bughdu fillah. You can love someone for the sake of Allah. You can also hate someone for the sake of Allah. You can do that. Okay. So, number 2, if she's insolent, maybe disobedient to all of your commands, what you tell her she can't do. She does things just what she feels like doing. Yes. You can divorce her for that, because why? One of the reasons why, after you have fulfilled your obligation, they have to obey you. So this is cardinal in your relationship. Number 3, if she commit lewdness, maybe she went and slept with somebody else and you discover that, you could divorce her for that. It's a cardinal reason why you can divorce. Number 4, okay, maybe she has conceived for you and then she went and aborted the pregnancy. You could divorce her for that, without telling you, because there should be no reason, unless for health reasons. But if there should be any reason why she will abort it in terms of health reasons, you should know it as a father, because when it comes to the pregnancy between the mother and the baby in the womb, if there's a threat to 2 of them, and if they have to abort one of them, then of course the baby will go. Let the mother stay. Islam says take the less of the 2 evil. But if she went and committed abortion, you could leave her for this. You could leave her for that. And so these are cardinal principles, particularly lewdness, abortion, and all of so disobedient to the husband, constant disobedience. Not one time somebody say, well, but if there's a habitual thing that she practices, then you can divorce her for that. And so these are reasons in Islam the man can divorce. But now, you have to know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, when you want to do that, you have to keep them for 3 months, though. 3 months, feeding her, clothing her, doing everything for her as usual. The only thing you don't do within that 3 months is to share bed with her. However, if within the 3 months you sleep with her, that means the divorce is null and void. But if you complete that 3 months, that's Salasat al-Qur'an. If you complete that 3 months, now she will not be the wife. She has to go out and then go get married to a different man, and then if that man and that woman divorce before you can remarry her. But she cannot be in that marriage and you do anything to facilitate the breaking of that relationship. That means that you have transgressed the boundaries set by Allah. Why did Allah put this in place? It's to protect the women and then make it difficult for men not to divorce. Because if you did that 3 months period pass, then the woman has to go now and get married to somebody else. And then you cannot do anything to break down that new relationship. That new relationship has to go on and then until it breaks down, and then before you can have rights to remarry that woman. And so God subhanahu wa ta'ala make it difficult for us so that we can just say, I want you today, tomorrow I don't want you.
Okay.
Yeah. Nam.
Thank you. For some reason, I got another test question. I don't know why they all switching to test now. Please dial *61 on your phone so that I can open up your line for you to directly ask Imam Dukuly your question. Before I read the next test question here, let me also remind you that tomorrow night, the same time, same numbers that you came through with tonight, please keep those numbers and come on the same time tomorrow. Hopefully we'll have Councilor Jerome Vradier from TRC, the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, talking about that commission's work and what it means for Liberia. So this question reads that my younger sister is currently being forced to marry to her late husband brother. Is there any justification in Islam for that, even if it's against her will?
Well, in Islam, there's no such thing. These are all cultural things. Allah said, do not inherit women against their will. It's the Quran. It's not even just the Hadith. It's the Quran. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, do not inherit. There is no question. When it comes to property, it's different case. But when it comes to woman cannot be inherited. She's not a property. She's not a property. You cannot force. Now, let's even look at the whole question of marriage. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam say, the woman who has been married before, she can even choose her man. The lady who has not been married before, her consent should be sought. You should ask her, Mabintu, do you really want Vansumana, then my missus say yes. If she says no, Rasulullah say, do not force her. Because she's the one that's going to take the burden. She's the one that's going, not the father, not the mother, not the uncles. There is no such thing in Islam. It's a question. It's a question of maybe somebody trying to cultural practice, and he's a Muslim, so they look at it as a Muslim implementing Islamic law. There is no such thing in Islam. This is the hadith of Rasulullah. It's a seek their consent, meaning ask her, do you agree to marry this person? If she says yes, Rasulullah says, okay, yeah, go ahead and do it. If she says no, don't force her into it. Because in most instances, it will not last. Now, how can brother pass away and force his wife to marry a younger brother? What if the woman doesn't like the brother? She's got a right to choose for herself. She's been married before. That's what the Sharia says. She can choose her man. You cannot force her anymore. Even when she's not married, she has not been married before, she can be forced into the warlock. But we see our people do that, the tradition do that, and so on and so forth. That's cultural. And those things are repugnant to Islamic law. Okay, if you're a Muslim, you need to practice what Islam says. Those cultural practices that are not repugnant, no problem. You can practice those. But those things that are repugnant directly to the laws of Sharia, you have to avoid them. And then you become a good Muslim. That means you obey Allah and you obey His messenger. Ati'ullah wa ati'u Rasulah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, obey Allah and obey His messenger. وَمَا تَعْقُوا رَسُولُ فَخُذُوهُ. Whatever Rasulullah brought to you is accepted. وَمَا نَهَاكُ عَنْهُ فَانْتَهُ. Whatever He forbade you, keep away from it. One of the prohibitions is do not force women into wedlock. The Quran says, وَلَا تَرْسُ نِسَاءَ كَرَهًا وَلَا تَعْدُلُونَ أَنْ يَأْتِينَ بِبَيِّنَةٍ مُبَيِّنَةٍ. Okay, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is clear on these issues in Surah An-Nisa. And so, if it's a test question, that's the answer. If somebody online asks this question, that's the answer. If you see it's not based on Islamic Sharia, it's purely based on our customary practices.
Hopefully they gotta be here somewhere to listen and send the test. So if you're not happy with your answer, by all means, please test follow-up question, but preferably you can dial *61 and talk to Imam yourself. Imam, let me take you away from just a little bit away from this issue of women right here. Senator Joy Howard Taylor made 2 appearances on this show when she was in the U.S. recently. I think during one of her 2 appearances, she alluded to how she expressed a desire to work hard to make sure that Liberia returns to a Christian to the state of Christian nation status. I think she took a lot of heat for it. Something that was right, and others obviously have different views about it. But every time she was pushed on this question, she made it clear that it wouldn't have any impact on other religion. It would be just the right thing to do. She's visited a lot of Islamic country where people feel very proud to say Islamic nation of XYZ, and so calling Liberia, a Christian nation of some sort would be just fine. She went further to talk about how she helped to renovate a madrasa in Banga recently and help the Muslim community as a way of just making her case to say that she has nothing against Islam or any other religion. But as a Liberian and as an Imam, given the status of affairs in Liberia, do you really think that of all the things we got to solve in Liberia, making Liberia a Christian nation, is that one of the things that we should be concerned about, or do you see any relevance to that?
Well, thank you so much for this question. I think, sometimes people are misdirecting the powers they have, or perhaps the responsibility they have is overweighing them, because you have so much thing to do. You have so much thing to do with reconciliation, reconstruction, also setting the country on the right page. For a senator to talk like this, that means that they are not even aware of their responsibility. A post-conflict environment that is volatile, is explosive, anything can happen. And then, largely, what would be the benefit of making Liberia a Christian nation anyway? What the percentage of Christians? What the percentage of Muslims and traditional beliefs? So you have to look at all of that. Are you imposing your belief system or other people, because if you look at the Liberian Constitution, it's clear on this issue. It's a no religious text shall be used for the governance of the state. No religious text, no Bible, no Quran can be used for the governance of the state. So even the president is not going to use it. So what the essence of having it as a Christian state? And so people need to be more responsible in terms of responding to their responsibilities, because this is one of those things that has brought the country down. Is the question even of the Christians who are in the country respecting the Christian values, or Muslims that they are respecting Islamic values? This should be the concern where when we go to church or the mosque to preach to the people, say, look, these are the values that Jesus Christ taught us. So let's abide by this. But the same things that are the Bible preach against, people are still practicing that. You don't even worry about people obeying the laws, but you worry about making a state, what they call Christian nation. And Islam, like Saudi Arabia came out like that as a Muslim country. There are a lot of Muslim countries, they have a secular nature. Like, for instance, Egypt. They have the Coptic Christians there thousands of years before Muslims came there. Now, you have millions of them. They are still there. They have their churches, they have synagogues, and they have what they call so you can't call it true Islamic state. Egypt is not. Iraq, the former Prime Minister, Tariq Aziz. So Iraq had Christians. If you go to Lebanon, the Muslims are there, Christians are there, Maronite Christians, and so on and so forth. So to find purely Islamic country, you can count them by fingers. You can count them by fingers. But the Christian nation looks like here, America, yes. And one of the things I always say, let me just say this: how in the world the Christian leaders they take oath on the Bible, not to uphold the Bible. All of the offices that go into, whether it's president, it's congressmen, senators, or whatsoever, governors of different states or different countries, even in Liberia, the president take oath on the Bible, but not to uphold the Bible. And that should be a concern. But to uphold something else, that should be the concern. So how can you swear on this Bible, you're not upholding the Bible? It's so good that you can take oath on it, but it's not good to be implemented. And so the implementation aspect of our teaching should be of concern. And that will convince people to follow us. Not when you want to make. Lastly, how is she going to make this country a Christian country? A country where you have Muslims existing before hundreds of years before the so-called settlers came with Christianity. Traditional worshippers and all over the place. Muslims are there. This is it's a fact, and you can check that. So how the people who came later, they become more citizens and they have more rights than the people who were there before. Like, for instance, the Mandingo situation, Mandingos were in Liberia before the settlers came. But the settlers seems to be more citizens, those who came, and than the people who were in the country. And perhaps even people who fought for the settlers to have a place. So similar situation is trying to surface again. But I don't think this time anyone will succeed, because the Muslims too we have right now, we can stand and talk about these rights. We are not ignorant people. We are a lot of educated Muslims. We are a lot of Christians also who sympathize with that cause. We have one state. We have diversity, and that has to be understood. This is a diversified country. You have Christians, you have Muslims, you have non-believers, you have traditional worshippers, and so everybody has got a place. That's why Islam says, each one of us has got a place, and we have to recognize that. Even a neighbor who is a drunkard, you still have to respect him. Maybe he's a gambler, you still have to respect him. Maybe he's a prostitute, you still have to respect him or respect her. And so on. That's the perspective Islam is. We have never opted to Islamize that country, never ever. And I don't think we even want to do that. We want to have just a peaceful place for every single Liberian to live, and foreigners who come into the country. And so I hope that the senator can redirect her energy towards reconstruction programs. The highway between Menekoma and Banga is not even possible during rainy season, and also the road from Monrovia to Banga is not possible, and then from Banga to Nimba is also terrible. And these are the places where we should focus our energy. The market to farm roads in Bon County, in Sanayi, all those places, districts are all dilapidated. So these are places, our school system He just admitted that she just renovated one school. So many of that in the country. So many villages, and then there are no roads, and so on and so forth. We don't even have fitting hospital. What can the senators talk about having a fitting hospital in the country where the people don't have to rush to Ghana? Ghana, when the Ghana people had their problems, the people used to come even for salt in Liberia. Today, we have to rush to Ghana to seek medical attention, and the senators don't address this. We have a budget that the budget is only addressing self. It's not addressing the people's need. And these are issues that we should be talking about. We talk about why can't we resolve the issues in Nimba as senators, and then between the Mandingos and the Gios and the Manos, so that the same way they live before they can live again. Why don't we address all of these issues? And so for me, this issue is irrelevant. It should not come up. If it came out, trust me, you have so many of us who will be vocal and who will speak against it. And even if, let's assume that the constitutional amendment passed, we have a right to take it to the Supreme Court. And even if we have to go to International Court of Justice to place what they call a prohibition on this, we will do that. Trust me. And because why? We need to live peacefully. Why are you suggesting to me I don't have a right to live there, even though this is my country? And this is this age, this era, when we talk about democratization meaning choosing what you want, choice, and then you are telling me you want to impose your belief system on me? You cannot do that. This country cannot go this route. And so, but anyway, it's an individual saying, I would hope, I had hoped that I listened to the conversation, but I didn't know before, and so that I could respond like this to whatever she may have said. And to all will be senators.
Thank you. And by the way, the recordings are all up on YouTube now. So if you go on YouTube and type in Liberian Diaspora Forum, all of Senator Taylor's appearances are on there. So it's clearly in her own words. I'll take the next caller here. We have 22 minutes to go. We say it after 10. So I'm assuming that will be 8 after 11 on the East Coast. D-Floor made a comeback. If you had noticed, few of you just joined us. We have Imam Dukuly tonight, speaking on the right of women in Islam and many other religious issues. So whatever your question, concern, or comments are, please dial *61 to have Imam Dukuly address your concern. I'll take D-Floor. D-Floor made a comeback. Flomo, welcome back to the Diaspora Forum. Your question for Imam Dukuly.
Thank you, Mr. Kroma. And my question goes to our guest tonight, Mr. Dukuly, Imam Dukuly. Imam Dukuly, you have given a lot of, you have articulated more on the line of women's rights. But my question has to do with the era that I think I see as a little bit equality. That has to do with the era where a man can marry 4 women, but a female cannot marry more than 1. Why, if the female wants to have sex, and the young man who she married to does not want to have sex with an identical woman, but he wants to go to the other woman? Isn't that an inequality to her? That's my question to Imam Dukuly.
Thank you. Thanks.
Okay. Anyway, polygamy has become so mythical in the minds of many people that they assume being Muslim means having 4 wives. This is a false notion. Of course, a very renowned anthropologist, Edward Westermark, in his 2-volume work, History of Human Marriage, notes that there has been polygamy in virtually every culture and religion, including Judaism and Christianity. But the point here is not to say why blame Islam. Actually, Islam is the only religion, even amongst Abrahamic faiths, that specifically limited the practice of polygamy that existed before Islam and established very strict conditions for guidance. The question, how could any man have 2 wives? So to us, that's terrible, right? We assume that because we are living in the West and it seems strange, and we assume it must apply to all cultures, all times, under all circumstances. This simply isn't true. Let me give you one current example, in the savage attack on Pakistan, genocide was committed on the Afghani people. It is estimated, though, that 1 to 1.5 million people lost their lives, a great majority of whom were men of a marriageable age. Now, with a great shortage of men, what will happen to their widows, their orphans, their daughters of marriageable age? It is better to live there in the camps with a handout, or better a man is willing to take care of his fallen comrades, wives, and children. So these are all questions. Now, having said that, you ask a question: why men can take more than one, and woman is not allowed to take more than one? Women are not like us, brother. Women are precious stones, jewelry. They are hidden pearls. If you know how to dig diamond, you know what I'm talking about. The women are like diamond in the soil. They are precious stones. They are not like ordinary stones. I am not saying that we don't have the same values, but men can easily do those things and go away. But women, what they call dignity, can be injured in a second, and she will never be able to repair it. Number two, if a woman were to get married, the other woman want to get sex. If a woman was to get married to 4 men or more, and 4 of them needed her at the same time, she becomes a sex slave, brother. She sleep with John and go to Paul, go to Mohammed and go to Lamin. She becomes a sex slave, and as soon as when she enters with a circle, the other one is in need. So she becomes a sex slave. God doesn't want that for them, brother. And then also, if the man take more than one, that means that other woman says she will not be a sex slave either. She will not be a sex slave. She had a period to cool off, brother. She had a period to cool off. And so, now, in the process of having 4 men and she conceives, then you from me say, that child is mine. I say it's mine. Kafuma say, okay, the child is mine. Dozo say it's mine. The woman is caught in the middle. God doesn't want that her dignity to be taken away because of this. Because if they were like us, they cannot conceive. This will not have been a problem from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But they can conceive. As a consequence, there will be a big problem. You talk about DNA. Okay, let DNA come. But okay, you say you believe. Okay, my faith says I cannot subject myself to DNA. Because if I subject the woman to DNA, the only thing that can happen between she and myself is divorce. Is divorce because I don't believe her. Unless maybe circumstances dictate that. Like, for instance, maybe here somebody they want to do it by force. But if it's question of prevailing religious belief, my religion says I can't do it. So what happens to her? So we'll be fighting over the child. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not want that. Another thing is, this is, why Islam appeals to many cultures in the world? It's not just Islam. When people talk about Islam, let's go to our culture, even in Liberia. Let's forget about different countries in West Africa and in the world. In Liberia right now, let's go to Cape Town. Let's go to Bomi. Let's go to Lufa. Let's go to Bon County. Those people, most of them, let's go to Bon County. Some people, they're not even Muslims. They are traditional leaders, but they have more than one wife. They have more than 2 wives. So Islam came and endorsed part of the culture of the people, their practices. So Islam that came and even put restriction on it. People were practicing this before Islam came. Islam came and said, the way you're practicing it is not right. But if you want to take more than one, more than one, you know what? You have to be just. Islam is the one that put restriction on it. Abraham had more than one wife, brothers. Abraham had Sarah. Abraham had Hagar. Abraham had Keturah. Jacob had more than one wife. Solomon had more than one. David had more than one. And not only that, most of the prophets that came, they had more than one wife. And so the practice has been there before Islam came. Islam is the one that came and restricted. He said, because people now went out of bounds, they were misbehaving. Islam said, no more. If you want to do it, yeah, you can do it. But you have to have a limitation. Number 2, you have to have a limitation. Number 2, you have to be just between them. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, but you know what? He said, this is difficult. He said, if you want to be just between your wives, it's very difficult to do. So be cautious. Allah is wanting believers to be cautious how you do this. So Islam is the one that actually talks about one man, one wife. One man, one wife. And so, but if you're allowed, given the circumstances, to take more than one. And so, but you have to respect them for what they are, and you have to be just between them.
Thanks, Imam. Folks, star 61. That's what you need to dial to ask a question. We got just 14 minutes left to go. So if you haven't had a chance to ask your question, please dial star 61. If you need to make a follow-up, please dial star 61. We'll open up your line. Imam, I want to take you back to something you mentioned earlier today with regard to women earning, what they work for, that belongs to them. You wouldn't have it or have part of it if they offer it to you. On the other hand, what you work for belongs to both of you. Now, there's no question in my mind that where we came from, I mean, those of us who came here from X-Square, where women were perhaps more of a servant, stay in the home and took care of things, and then every now and then they have businesses, but that always came after their primary, household responsibility. But where we find ourselves now, where both men and women work equally, you find some instances the women are earning more than what the men are earning. And I also go to say, I don't know if there's any man in America today who doesn't know how to change diaper. I don't know how many new in Africa, but so men here cook, clean, and do more like sharing some of the same household activities. So with those things in place, I know Islam is not something that can be updated, or it's not something that this is not your opinion. This is like it is written. But with given the different scenario that I've just explained, is there? I guess what I'm driving at. So would it be fair to say that over here, should a woman earning, be, or at least part of it, be considered for the general upkeep of the family, or it is what it was then? That's what it will be. That whatever she works for belongs to her, and whatever you work for is for both of you upkeep, or all of you for that matter, when children become involved. So does our being here, I guess, our being here changes that scenario in any way?
Yeah, but given what you have just said, you have just concluded for me. You just made a decision. It's something we call change of fortune, mamal as man, and that's what happened here right now. The only reason why you learn how to change the diaper, the only reason why you're changing, you're babysitting, the only reason why you clean the house, the only reason why perhaps you could cook, is only because she's working. You just it's only because she's working. She can earn, but she has responsibility at the house. You tell her, say, you know what, I don't want you to work. I will feed you, I'll do everything. You will not have the reason to change the diaper. You have no reasons to cook. You have no reasons to clean. You can help, though. It doesn't mean when you're working you can't do none of those things. You can't do that. But because there's a change of fortune, you say our mothers used to be in the house, they will do business, yes, and they will cook, they will do this, they will do that. And in most instances, even the money they earn, they say they're looking for blessing for her, they give it to our parents. They'll give it to our father. However, I addressed this issue initially. There is no law in Islam that says that woman should be hard-hearted towards her husband. There's always takfif in the law, flexibility, particularly when it comes between husband and wife. But the problem has been, and I'm certain, it has been because of the way we approach the people on the matter, on the subject matter. You don't do it by force. You say, you can explain the circumstances. Don't assume they understand. Sit with your wife and say, look, honey, situation here is different from Africa. I marry you because I want for us to make life together. I want some help from you. My one hand can't be able to do all of this. But I'm begging you as a wife, I want you to do this for me. What's the big deal in this? If the woman really truly loves her husband, believe me, she will take all her money and give it to you. But some of us want to treat her like slaves. When you work, the money is for me. If I bring you in this country, bringing someone in this country does not give you a license to enslave them. That's not a license for enslavement. As a matter of fact, you come here because you want to make ends meet. You come here because you want to make life easy for yourself. So how you want to make it difficult for someone? And so that trust that should exist between husband and wife is not there. That's the reason, because that if there's trust and there's no cheating on the side either of the husband, and he's straightforward with his wife, and the woman is straightforward with the man, there should be no because you have given the most important thing to one another. You are very safe. So economic money should be a secondary issue. But because of lack of trust, I don't trust. Woman doing something the husband doesn't even know. She been in a house, back home, she hiding it. The husband doing something, he hiding it. People do this. And so you see, all of these things are causing problems. Other than that, she can earn, she can help you. I tell you what, the hadith of the Prophet. In fact, let me make it easy. The money that Rasulullah used to pay for Khadija when he went to marry her, she gave him. She gave him from her own money. He said, go to my, he said, I don't have it. He said, don't worry about that. I will give. She gave him the money. And so that means that woman can be generous to her husband. You can do that. There's no prohibition in Islam to do that. It is only a question of giving you that right. If they give you that right, and then your right they have is obedience to your command, to respect you, to respect themselves in your absence, to safeguard their honor, their dignity, and for you, and so on and so forth. And so to answer your question directly, there is no prohibition that says, however, there is no law that imposes upon them that they must do it. There is no law. And that law is not going to change, because Islam is a rahmah, it's a mercy towards them, because they have suffered for ages. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wanted to restore their rights. Their rights. And their right have been restored. So when I see in the West, when people say, oh, we are fighting for women's rights. At this time and age, people say fighting for women's. Why are you talking about women's rights? Islam said they already have those rights. All we need is to safeguard the rights. So that means we have not been giving it to them. If a civilized country like this, who still talking about protecting women's rights, that means that we have not been giving them their rights. And so there's, brother, I think the best we can do is to negotiate with our wives, and so that they will be in position to share with us whatever they earn, whether it's a business money, it's work money. They have right to work, they have right to own properties, they have right to share, and they have right not to share. However, they are encouraged, given the circumstances and the places we are, to share with us. And so they are encouraged by Islam for them to share, given what Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and his wife said. That's not Khadija. Ridwanullahi ta'ala alayha ajma'in.
Thanks, Imam. Before I turn the floor over to you for your closing remarks, let me make sure I almost forgot this last test message question I mentioned earlier. You cited, cheating as one of the reasons for a man to divorce his wife. But I learned earlier on that in order to divorce your wife for her having an affair with somebody else, you have to see it with your own eyes. We live in a country where that is almost impossible. But would it also be fair to divorce her for having an affair with another man if, in fact, it was proven by prominent people, prominent members of the community that are willing to testify at any level? Would that be sufficient as opposed to seeing the person with your own eyes?
Well, but actually Islam, it gives you both. It said those who accuse chaste women, married women, of committing lewdness. If you are the husband, you accuse her. It's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say, you must have put them in, not just you, it's not even you, full just witnesses, prominent people in the community, they never tell a lie, must see them in the act. Now, that is almost impossible. It's almost impossible. So what is the next condition for this? So Islam, it gave different categories of law. That's why this conversation is very important tonight, that people listen to these issues. So what the next thing that's supposed to take place? Because there is no one to prove that actually she was involved in committing lewdness. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give both of you a chance. Number one, He gave her oath. She will swear 4 times, invoking curse upon herself. she will swear 4 times. He said, if I did this, she will invoke curse. And then the 5th one, he said, if you are tempted, then he will invoke curse upon you. Okay, if both of you agree to do this, you will do the same thing. You will also invoke curse, Allah's curse upon you. And the last one, invoke Allah's curse upon her. Now, if both of you agree to go through this, then after you will have done that, this will be the basis for divorce. In that case, there is no more trust. You have to divorce. It's a punishment for either of you, either for her or for you, by separating. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that's what he wants in this case. When that happens, if you take that oath, then you can be together. Now, let's assume that we're in Islamic Sharia country where people implement the hudud, maybe the had, where they talk about the punishment for committing adultery. Most people don't understand this. They say, oh, Allah, Muslim people say stone the woman to death. No, the woman has to agree to be stoned before it can happen. Because why? If she takes the oath, she's free to go. She said, if I didn't go, I invoke your curse upon me. So if she did that, she's free to go. So you can't just catch somebody because, oh, I caught her in adultery, so we're going to stone her. If she takes the oath, it's more than enough to free her. So in that case, you think Allah really, really want for the woman to be disgraced? Allah doesn't want that. Allah doesn't want that. And so to answer your question, you have to have full just witnesses caught in the act. If that can happen, the second option is for her to take oath. Invoking Allah's curse upon her. If she did that, then she can be free.
Thank you. I'll take the last question for the night here. Musa Wale had tested a question earlier, but now he just made an entry here to ask a live question. Musa Wale, I believe from Philadelphia. Welcome to the Liberian Diaspora Forum. Your question for Imam Dukuly.
Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum wa Dukuly.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Sorry, I had a text earlier because dealing with a baby. But I want to say thank you for at least making some clarification here tonight. But I think the problem has been most of our imams, they come and just preach the sermon. They don't give us the opportunity to ask, like open a forum for question and answer period. And I've gone to a lot of Friday prayers in Liberia and maybe some of the masjid in Philadelphia where the imam just preach a sermon and it's Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah and people leave after Salat. But if our imams can create the opportunity where their sermon's going to be reduced to maybe question and answer lecture period, some of the information you're giving here tonight might not be alien to us. However, even though we are aware of some of them, but thank you for the clarification.
Thank you.
Yeah. My question, the good aspect of the discussion tonight is the way Allah arranged marriage. He protects the both partners to the extent where it is not easily possible for unceremonious divorce to occur. Because the condition you just gave, I think is very tedious. But I just say, may Allah protect us against any of those negative vices. I want to say thank you for coming on, and we'll always appreciate hearing from you.
Thank you, Rod.
Thank you, Brother Wale. Well, Imam, you can make your closing remark, and then we will leave it there for today. But most certainly, this is something we'll have to continue in the future. So you have the floor to make your closing remark, Imam Dukuly.
Okay. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد نبي الأمي وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا. Firstly, I'd like to thank you for your invitation and all of our brothers and sisters who have participated. Those who listen, maybe they may not have asked questions, and those also who asked the questions. Their question actually put me on my guide, and so I really appreciate all of you, brothers and sisters, who may have participated, and the host as well. I just want to say that Islam is not a guesswork. It's about understanding the laws, and there are so many of our scholars around. Perhaps if we ask them, they'll be able to answer some of the questions that we have. They are pertinent questions, yes, they are indeed questions, and people get confused, particularly in the Western society where you see Muslims behaving contrary to what Islamic Sharia is. And so all of those things bring question to mind. And so I like to encourage all of my brothers and all of my sisters to seek knowledge about Islam. I know some of you are busy, you may not have the time, but I have time. Call me. I'll be able to answer some of your questions. If not just yes and no answer, I will tell you, call me so time. I may be busy. I will answer you this time. So because there are certain questions you might need to explain in details in order for the person to get the whole of the situation. And so I want to encourage all of our brothers, all of our sisters to seek knowledge, even if it's not Islamic knowledge. Go to school, understand, learn something, because the challenge before us is greater that we see. As we go back home, as Muslims, as Madingos, and other Liberians as well, those who are listening, we have greater challenge. We need to, in the 21st century, we need to meet the challenges, and the only way we can meet those is by educating ourselves. I think this is very essential, and that's why Islam encourages both men and women to learn, and so that, because when you learn, it actually changes your position. It makes your thinking different, and so that is very essential for us. And then also, this type of forums are really, really good for our community, because we can learn from each other a lot. The questions, profound questions that came to me, I was more impressed with the questions perhaps than the answer that I gave, because maybe I have some shortcomings. And so if anything went wrong, I am responsible. It's not Allah. If I did something right, the praise goes to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I don't take any credit for it. It's Allah, and it goes to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because he brought a religion to us. And so I want to stop here and thank all of you brothers whom have encouraged this. And I think you should give more forum to most of our religious leaders and also political leaders. And inshallah, next time this program coming on, let me know. I'll be there, because the issue of Islam or Christianizing the nation, I think this is a wrong notion. This is a wrong way to go. I will hope that the senators who want to do that, they will forget and drop their demands and so on and so forth. I want to start there and say, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh to all of my brothers and to all of my sisters.
Thank you, Imam Dukuly. Well, folks, on behalf of myself, Kafuma Krama, and the hardworking staff of the Liberian Diaspora Forum, we want to thank each and every one of you for tuning in tonight. We want to particularly thank Imam Dukuly for taking up his time to be with us tonight. This was the beginning, but by no means is going to be the end. We will be tapping the Imam to come back at any time. Anytime he has time available. We'll make sure we bring him from time to time to refresh our minds, memory on Islam. So with that said, I will now declare this program officially closed. And once again, thanks to everyone for being here tonight. Thanks, and have a wonderful night.